My name is Lenny Rosenberg. I'm the Michael Jordan of the restaurant industry.
Los Angeles restaurant owner Lenny Rosenberg has made a name for himself in the restaurant world, here in California and throughout the U.S. That's because Lenny is not reluctant about letting the world know he is the GOAT of the restaurant business. And he let us know that all throughout this interview.
I'm the Michael Jordan of the restaurant industry. I've been dubbed this because of a 30-year history across the country in rebranding good restaurants and making them great.
For the record, Lenny Rosenberg is the self-proclaimed GOAT. He dubbed himself. Lenny owns Marmalade Cafe in affluent Santa Monica, California, and Lenny is in the process of purchasing another restaurant also here in Santa Monica. He has had great success in this tough and competitive industry over the last 30 years, either owning or purchasing and flipping dozens of restaurants. Prior to Lenny taking over Marmalade Cafe a few years ago, he was the owner and operator of Junior's Deli, the iconic West Los Angeles Jewish deli known all throughout the Southland for decades. Naturally, when Lenny bought this business back in 2012, he changed the name to Lenny's Deli. We first met Lenny at the deli several years ago. That's because while every restaurant owner was running from the news camera back then so not to seem heartless and cheap, when asked about their opposition to a $15 minimum wage increase that Los Angeles was implementing, Lenny was running to the camera with his megaphone and his message. Shockingly, Lenny promised he was going to fire every employee if he had to save his business from the new LA $15 minimum wage that he insisted was going to put him and hundreds of other restaurant owners out of business. Well, some years later, Lenny is now on a national campaign, his own personal crusade of sorts, to fight a federal $15 minimum wage, which he claims is going to put tens of thousands of restaurant owners out of business nationwide. And if Lenny's rant seems to be shtick, it's not. We found that out because Lenny did fire some of his employees, and he insists he is going to continue to fire more of his workers if, as he says, things get to the point where a $15 minimum wage, coupled with the loss of business from COVID, threatens his livelihood, his earnings, although he says his fight is for all the business owners everywhere, and not just himself.
Now I'm doing this with a specific cause to help restaurants that have been targeted during the great pandemic that have been hurt across the country. I want to make it clear, I'm in favor of a minimum wage of $15 an hour, just not how the government has been going about it. It's also meant to be raised a little bit at a time, maybe 25, 30 cents a year, not from $7.25 to $15 all of a sudden. The government just doesn't understand economics and how this is going to destroy restaurants across the country.
Lenny believes a federal $15 minimum wage is going to cause massive unemployment nationwide, with businesses shuttered everywhere from California to New York. He says with the minimum wage increase, restaurants are going to have to double their prices immediately to offset the profit and loss margin, which he says is going to be a disaster.
They're probably going to have to fire 20 to 30% of their staff just to keep their restaurants open. That's the lucky ones. As far as doing a federal minimum wage across the board, which would bring places like Texas from $7.25 to $15 overnight, it's going to be a disastrous outcome.